Hello everyone and welcome to Witches of the Moon. My name is Jen and I'm your Tuesday hostess. Now this week's topic is a continuation of last week, and last week we were talking about the clairs, specifically clairvoyance and the third eye chakra. And so I did discuss a little bit about clairaudience, and this week I'm going to be talking about a couple of other clairs. Claircognizance is one, and clairsentience is another, or clear feeling. And so there are many clairs, but those are the ones that I'm really going to focus on today. I'm sure some of the other hosts and hostesses will talk about others, and if not, and I'm sure they'll talk about many more than what I'm going to be discussing, but I thought these two would tie in really nicely. And I'm also going to be discussing psychometry, which kind of goes along with everything really that we've already talked about. So anyways, let's get started. Now, claircognizance is a clear knowing, and many people, actually everybody possesses this, has this ability already. It's just a natural ability. Although sometimes people just kind of say, oh, that's just, a coincidence that I knew that, or a coincidence that this happened, that kind of thing. But it's really not. It's actually one of the clairs, the 5 clairs that we have. Actually, there's more than 5 clairs, but there's 5 main ones that everybody pretty much always talks about. And so, one of the ways that you can continue to develop this ability is just by listening to what that little inner voice is telling you. That's truly the best way to do that. And, some people think that this ability has something to do with just knowing stuff that you've never talked about before, that you've never read about. And that's true. While that is true, that is part of it, there's also more to it. It's just a knowing of things that you couldn't possibly know, whether it be about a person, whether it be about a topic, whatever the case may be. I know I like to look at it as this little inner voice that always is pointing us in the right direction. And yes, that does go with your intuition, but it's also a way of knowing, if we pay attention to that, we'll be on the right track, or, we want to avoid a certain area. So that's kind of what that's all about. Now, the clear feeling, it can also be, and you will hear me say clear feeling or clear smelling or whatever. And the reason why I do that is because people that I have been working with, teaching people who I have been teaching and everything else, it's kind of hard for them to always remember which clair is what. So if you do the clear feeling, clear smelling, clear seeing, that kind of thing, they get it. They get it right away. And then the other terms can come later. It's not that important that you actually remember which clair goes with what. As long as you know exactly what you're doing, that's really all that matters. So the clear feeling. Now, this can kind of fall into the part of an empath, even though there is a clear empathy. Although, I mean, for me, I think they personally interchange, because clear feeling is being able to feel things, from others. It's like walking into a room and you can feel the energy. Like if somebody just had an argument, you may feel the heaviness of a room. Or if somebody was crying, you may feel that. Or you may not even be in the same room, same state, or anything else with somebody that you're connected to. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're feeling sad, or you need to cry, or whatever it might be. That kind of goes along with that. Now, everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, because we have serial killers who do not really have that empathic, or the empathy, I guess is a better word, don't have empathy for people or for what they're feeling. So most people, the majority of the people, we can't empathize with somebody. So, we do know how someone's, we can imagine, or, sometimes we've gone through the same thing. So we kind of get where they're coming from. But when it comes to being empathic, I think there's a little bit more. Most empaths and empathic gets kind of a bad rap, because it's like, well, everybody has empathy, but I think what everyone is trying to say is that it goes a little farther. It's not just understanding where a person's coming from, but it's actually feeling that emotion and that pain as if we are going through that, even though we're not, and we may not even be in the same area with them and even know what's going on in their life. A prime example, I will definitely use myself. My best friend, she lives in Missouri, and when she was pregnant with her daughter Kyla, the day that she went to have her, I literally shot up out of bed with severe abdominal pain and had no idea why I had abdominal pain. And it was really early in the morning, and you know, I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to bed, see if this kind of settles down a little bit, because, you know, I knew I didn't have to go to the bathroom or anything, so I knew it wasn't a stomach ache. And so I went back to bed, and then I got up a little later, and I called my friend, and her mom answered the phone, and they're like, yeah, and they told me what was going on. And Kyla had actually been taken from her mom to another hospital because there were some complications, which Shannon and I had talked about all through her pregnancy. So, you know, she knew that was a real thing that possibly could happen. And, you know, I'd kind of prepared her a little bit for what was to come, but still, you know, it's still kind of shocking to your system when your daughter gets taken from the hospital where you're in and put there. But anyways, back to this. What I had found out was at the time that I had the abdominal pains is when Kyla had been taken, and Shannon was in a lot of pain at that point in time. So I was actually physically feeling her pain and her emotions. And I seem to do that a lot. Whether I'm on an investigation, whether I'm not on an investigation, if there is someone around me who happens to have any kind of pain, whether it be leg pain, whether it be arm pain, headache, whatever, I will feel that pain, and then the moment they leave, that pain goes with them. It's not like I keep that pain with me. And this also happens with spirits too. If someone has passed away from something to do with the chest, I will literally feel that in my chest area, whether it be cancer, whether it be a heart attack, you know, or emphysema, something to do with the chest. The same way if they had fallen and they had a head injury, I would feel that pain in my head on the same side where that injury occurred. So there's a number of different ways that you can feel this thing. And again, some people may brush these pains off and not even think about, well, it could be that I am clairsentience, you know, or, you know, even knowing something that I'm claircognizance. So there's many different ways that, you know, things happen, and sometimes they just get brushed off as something else. Now, what I also want to talk to you about is psychometry. Now, some of you may know, some of you may not, but psychometry is holding an object that doesn't belong to you and picking up the impressions that you get from that object. And it not only does it not only can you tell a lot about the object just by looking at it, but by holding it, you can actually teach yourself or learn to know who owned the object, you know, all about the person who wore it or anything else, where it actually came from, you know, that kind of thing. Is because sometimes you find antiques and you're kind of wondering about the story, and so sometimes you can, and now, I mean, unless you know the person physically, I mean, there's no way to really validate that. So, I mean, you just kind of have to trust your instinct and trust your intuition on that part. But if you do know the person, let's say you want to give somebody a reading or you want to practice with somebody, you know, trade an object with them. Give them one of your objects. It doesn't have to actually be yours. It could have been something gifted to you, you know, from, or handed down to you from like your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather, whatever the case may be. You know, give them an object and have an object, get an object from them and hold it and trade that information. What are you picking up? What do you see? What are you hearing? What do you just know about this object? What is that object saying to you? You know, it's a great way to work a lot of your clairs. I mean, you know, because clairvoyance, you'll be able to see maybe who the person was and describe that person You might have, you might hear things about this. You might have your guides whispering to you and telling you, hey, this is what this is about, and this is where it came from, you know, that kind of thing. Or feeling, you know, was the person happy? Was the person sad? You can find out a lot about a person just by holding an object if you're able to, if you work with psychometry and if you work with objects. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. When it comes to the clairs. What I also will say, when it comes to protecting yourself, especially if you are able to take on, if you are an empath or an empathic, one of the great things to do is just to visualize a bubble around you each and every day so that you're not absorbing everyone's energy as much. Another thing that I would suggest, so that you kind of get rid of the gunk that comes along with being around people, is to not only when you do your shower, but to visualize, you know, all of this white light coming down, all the gunk just leaving your body, and filling yourself up with a bright white light, and surrounding yourself with light. You can use a shield or whatever else that you want to use. And I know we've talked about this before in one of the topics this season, so I don't remember which when that was, to be quite honest, but I know I have. So that's another great way that you can do things. But that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about today. I'm sure my other hosts and hostesses will talk about many of the other clairs, and that's really all. That's all I have for today. So be sure to watch everybody else's video. I know they have a lot of great information. They are amazing and they are awesome, and not for nothing, I mean, they're people that I look up to. I love them. I can't believe that I get to be part of this amazing channel. So anyways, again, check everybody else's out, and I will see you next week with a new topic. Later.